Well, I don't remember reshuffling of the vote deck being a big issue. Anyway, I've set up, everybody's going to get 5 cards. I'm just decreeing that the Midwest is going first, not because I particularly love the Midwest. It's got kind of hellish weather, actually, in a lot of ways. Well, it gets really hot during the summer, at least St. Louis does, and it can be pretty miserable in the winter. And you got tornadoes and all kind of crap like that. Anyway, everybody gets 5 of these vote cards. And this is just a simple roll and move. And I'm going to go counterclockwise like I always do, which actually may disturb this game because I'm going to have to, because that's me. But it actually will disturb the balance of the game, because who goes after whom is kind of important, and it may all be worked into the system here. Now, one of the problems is with voting. If you look, you know, once I get a card in my hand and have to make a decision how much to bid on it, that becomes kind of a tricky situation where I'm going to be rolling a lot of dice, etc., to make my choices, as I always do. So the pieces are going to move clockwise, but I'm going to move counterclockwise. That may affect the game. It may affect how it plays out, but it shouldn't be too big a deal. Alright, so we open up with a fly anywhere. Well, what do I want? I want some bucks. I think the best way to get bucks is a secret ballot. That means there's going to be one of each region up for bid. And I've got a horrible secret with my deck that I don't want to tell you, so my wife may find out about it. I try very hard to ignore it, but it's really terrible. The California card is marked, it's bent, and it's the most important card in the game at 45 electoral votes. So you pick it up at a secret ballot and you know what it is, and it kind of sucks. Alright. So I think bidding starts with... yeah, it starts with the player. And he wants to open up on this. You gotta figure these are at least worth three electoral votes each. So at the very least, this is worth $1 million. And there's no question there. And we're gonna open up with 2 million. Because that fits my numbers nicely. Now, this guy doesn't have a lot of cash. 2 million's pretty cheap for this. He's gonna go to 2,250,000, and I'm gonna kind of display my votes this way, even though you wouldn't do this in an actual game. This guy says that's too rich for his blood. He's got a decent amount of money. I'm going to give him a second roll because he does have a decent amount. He'll pass on it as well. So now the question is, do you want 2,250,000 or do you want to pay 2,500,000? And he's going to go to the 2.5. And now it's 2,750 to him if he wants to go, basically. So he'll go there. Is it worth 3 million? Nah. So he takes that, and that's almost all of this guy's money. That's a pain because now if an open ballot comes up, he can't protect his states and people can buy them from him easily. Let's see what he gets though. He gets Kentucky, which right in of itself he could exchange for 900,000 votes. He gets Texas, which is 2 million something votes. These are sort of minimals. I mean, he made votes here because he can exchange these for money, as it were. Pennsylvania, another big one. He got a good score here. In Minnesota, nice hand there. All right, let's hit through another one. Let's go to the Eastern player. Hey, I'm trying to do this the correct way. Let's go to the Western player now. See what he gets. Oh, the die is kind of interesting. Now, he gets an open ballot. And he is, of course, going to target Pennsylvania as the most valuable thing. The thing I wanted to mention about the die, it only has 1s and 2s on it. So, your movement is very slow around the board, and you hit, well, at least a good number of the spaces every time you go around. Alright, so now we have another bidding round. You saw how I did the bidding, so I'm going to pause and run through it again. This guy has to open. Well, I think this was a mistake. So when I say something's worth $2,700,000 minimum, well, that's sort of an iffy yes and no, because you kind of don't want to spend these things. He spent $2,750,000 on this $2,700,000. Buying something for more than it's worth, early in the game especially, is probably kind of tricky, because now this is kind of vulnerable, and nobody else wanted to go higher than that. They think, yeah, the 27 votes is nice, but look at the deal this guy got. That kind of sucks to get that. Alright, on to the South. He gets a 2. He gets a win votes. That means he draws a vote card. And it's nice to get more capital. There's no question. And now on to Red. Win votes. He gets 1. Alright, I gotta pause here because... yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Alright, I won't be back in a minute. The light's gonna shift. I just thought I'd come back. I've got to work. It's just a couple minutes before my day starts, so no chance I'm gonna be able to fill this video in before then. So anyway, I'll be back, and the light will be very different when I come back. Okay, so starting off with the Midwestern player. And there's no real association other than where you are on the board. He landed on this state marker. That means he gets to look at an east state and sees, ooh, it's a valuable one. Now here's where the game gets kind of weird, because nobody else knows what they're bidding on. He gets to open the bidding. It's not a very valuable state. It's probably not worth a whole hell of a lot. In some ways, money is worth about as much as the votes. You don't really want to spend much more, and you can often get away with much less, as we saw over here. At least when I've played, it seemed like you could buy things for less. Now, it's kind of weird, because it's kind of like a Monopoly type idea here. You know, if this is worth $2,700,000, if I pay less than that, I win, right? Because I can turn it in for that. Yeah, but that thinking doesn't seem to arise, because you're giving up capital, and sometimes you're giving up votes that you don't want to give up. So it's a weird feeling to make the decision on those bids. Anyway, I'll come back after the bidding, see what happened. Well, it ended up going for a little bit more than it's worth, $500,000, and then went from this player over to here and goes into his pocket. He's kind of disappointed, but you know, what happens is it goes around once, and when he doesn't up the bid again, so he could have gotten it for $250,000 blank free. Now the question is, well, do you try bluffing it up, bringing people back in, make people think it's worthwhile? That's real tough when I'm playing it solo. There's no question there, but in this case it didn't happen. He just was happy to get $100,000 more than the value of the state that he drew. And on the next play, the yellow player landed on the state marker, pulled Louisiana, and bidding ended up putting it at 1,000,000 votes. That's going to get shuffled back in. I'll do that immediately. Like I said, you don't often see the player actually grabbing their vote cards themselves or buying something. One thing to note, he's paying a 1,000,000 vote card. You generally want to pay the largest denominations you have, because there are politics cards that allow you to pull a vote card from someone else's hand or whatever. It's better to have a handful of little things. It's easier to make change with, whatever. So you want to pay with the biggest thing you got at any given time. And now when Reds go around, they hit a politics space, they get to draw one of these. No reason to play this right away. the game's not in a position where committing these politics cards is really a good idea. Fly anywhere could be very, very valuable. So it can only be used at the start of your turn anyway, so he couldn't use it right now. But on his next turn, he could jump somewhere. One reason to do it in the two-player game, it's more attractive to use them early, because you can skip the other player's home state and jump to near your own, where, you know, there's a disadvantage to landing on someone else's home state and an advantage to landing on your own. Or am I getting that opposite? Yeah, there's a disadvantage to landing on someone else's. So, you know, you kind of want to skip that. Anyway, there we go. Well, we've been seeing a lot of the southern states falling for whatever reason, just because that's where people have been landing. But we saw we saw the first western state, well, second, Texas had come out in the big set, come out. Now, Colorado's not a bad state at 700,000, and it went for 750,000, which is a pretty mild premium, really. But people don't want to spend a lot of money because they want big war chests towards the end. And as soon as this guy drops out, everybody knows it ain't California. Texas is gone. There really aren't any valuable ones left. So, you know, the best bonus you can get is Washington, which will be worth 900,000 votes. Or 9 electoral votes as well. So you know you're not getting a big bonus off of it. So it's not worth paying. The West is kind of funny that way, in that it's mainly small states, or a few mediums, and a couple of monsters. Midwest, more of a leaning towards medium, but with a couple of tiny ones. South, nothing small. And the East is filled with a mixture. Again, a couple of big, a lot of small. So you kind of got to look at, you know, what region you're in and what's already out there in order to have a guess as to what you're facing. I don't know. Just babbling, basically. Well, the Midwestern player got a fly anywhere. He took it to the secret ballot, put out 4, and I think in 4 players you want to go there early at least. 4 states. This guy pumped it up to $5 million. Primarily because his hand. That guy started it at $2 million. He's like, well, it's either $5 million or nothing. I'll just go there. He went up to 5,250. This guy wasn't willing to go up to $6 million, and he's lucky, because the pit, there was Virginia, which is pretty decent, but the rest was pretty much crap, a bunch of 3s, and I think he got stung on the total value that he pulled in there. Lots of states, not a lot of value. And blue got the same option, put the $5 million down again, nobody challenged it, and got a reasonably little connection. 14, 21, I think, for the set. You know, about half value. When those big sets go up, you want to bid high. It feels like it should be worth at least $4 or $5 million. But, you know, it's tough. But there's nothing really huge out here, so throwing something to open ballot didn't really seem too terribly worth it. Texas was the only other thing he could do that with. It's the only thing that he doesn't own that's worth putting that challenge on, and that puts the money in someone else's hands. The $5 million, it's now over here in the deck, which isn't terrible, but, you know, he gets a chance to recycle it now, or someone else might get it, who knows. Well, pretty much stasis here, a couple more actions, and I'm going to load this one up. Yellow landed on blue's home state. That meant blue got to draw a card from yellow. You know, not a lot of effect there. I've got to remember with yellow, now this is a powerful thing. If somebody's going to land on this fly anywhere, they can stop them, land them here, and steal a card from them. And that's a nice kind of card to have for that. Anyway, up it goes.